So I want to make this video and talk about crafting, especially crafting at Lake Start, because in 3.22 I took a different approach to the game, and instead of my usual push for a mage blood by the end of day 4, I decided to start investing heavy into crafting at the beginning of day 3. First I want to show you the currency that I have, then I'm going to show you the type of trades that I've received in the past 2 hours, and then talk about crafting. This is all the currency that I have. Obviously it's much more than that because a large part of my money was invested into essences, fossils, and also beasts, because these are crafting materials. And on top of that, crafting in general requires a lot of currency. A lot of the items that I've crafted were quite expensive. For example, this one right here, it was almost 20 divines to make. So this is the reason why I have just so little currency. Now I want to show you the type of trades that I've received in the past 2 hours. I'm not going to show each item individually, I'm just going to scroll and give you an idea of the cash flow that you would have from crafting. There you have it. Now I want to talk about the crafting and my experience with it. Overall, it was not a good experience. Maybe to some of you it may look like a lot of currency, but honestly, if I were to just farm logbooks, I would have probably around 500 to 600 divines, considering this is day 7. Yes, I made more currency. It may not seem like it because, as I said, it's invested into other things such as essences, fossils, beasts, and items crafted. Not to mention that I need to liquidate everything that I have. But the problem that I have with crafting is, first of all, it's going to be delayed. Whatever you're crafting an item, you're going to receive that money back in about 2-3 days, maybe even 1 week. That's one downside. Another downside would be it forces you to be at your computer. If you're not glued to your computer, if you cannot respond to trades, you're just simply going to make much less. If you can only play PoE for 2 or 3 hours per day, then there's no point for you to actually craft, because crafting requires you to be at your computer. Maybe you're just simply going to make much less if you're not at your computer to be able to respond to trades. And another thing that I hate about crafting, it's going to be the fact that you can not actually craft for hours and hours on end. When you compare how much you would make in 1 hour to how much you would make in 1 hour crafting to how much you would make in 1 hour running maps, obviously crafting is much better. You're going to make much more crafting. But what people fail to realize is just simply, you're not a robot. You're not going to craft for 1 hour. Whereas when doing maps, it's much easier to do maps for 1, 2 or 3 or 4 hours straight without taking a break. Maps in general are fun. You do maps, you're going to make a lot of currency because you can play for a long time. Just simply hearing the sound of a divine drop or the explosions from killing monsters in general, it's much easier to do, it's much easier to handle. But crafting, trust me, it's boring. You don't want to sit in your hideout, spam alterations, you don't want to sit in your hideout, spam essences, whisper 15 different people per minute or something like that, or just going back and forth from your hideout to your menagerie to craft items with suffixes can be changed, exalt something. It's just simply boring process. This is why I have so little currency. Obviously, if I were to craft in a similar fashion to how I would grind logbooks, I would have much more. But I found myself that it's very hard for me to actually craft for more than a couple minutes. Yes, you can do that. You can do 1 or 2 hours, but in general, you're going to take lots of breaks because it's just simply boring process. It's not something fun. Whereas with logbooks, it's quite easy. Blasting the logbooks, especially if you have logbooks with really good layouts and really good implicits, where there's a lot of density, and you get a very high dopamine rush from all the explosions, from killing the monsters and the loot that you get. It's quite easy to do. But with crafting, trust me, it's spamming essences, boring, tedious job. No, it's not going to work like that in reality. So you're going to make less simply by just not working as much, because it's quite unpleasant thing to do. Crafting, it's very unpleasant. So this is why I would recommend most people not to do it. Obviously, if you just play for 2 or 3 hours, don't even consider crafting, because if you play 2 or 3 hours only, you're better off running maps, grind for 2 or 3 hours, then liquidate everything, and then you have your currency. Another thing would be with crafting, you're going to spend some time doing research. I know that if you have a lot of experience, obviously if you have a lot of experience and you know that you pretty much know the good crafts, you don't have to do that, but at the same time meta changes. For example, this league there were a lot of people playing Hexblast mines, and you pretty much have to take a look at the meta and do some research. And in that time that you're doing research, maybe it's only a few hours, but those few hours don't pay you anything. And on top of that, when you're doing research, you just want to test the market. Because you're testing the market, you don't have a good system in place. And when that hour, first of all, you're risking the money because you don't know whether or not you will sell the items that you're trying to craft. And on top of that, you don't have a good system in place, so you're going to be very inefficient at crafting those items. When you're crafting Siege and Vices, I pretty much know the way to craft them, and I can craft a bunch of them in 1 hour. But when I'm testing if an item is good craft or not, I'm obviously going to make lots of mistakes, and I'm going to be very inefficient with that craft. And this added together will slow you down. Obviously in the end, crafting it's still more profitable than just running maps, but it's something that I would not recommend most of you. For me personally, I've had more fun running logbooks. I know that if I were to sell everything, probably in a few days from now, I would have around 500, 600 divines minimum, just by being online and responding to trades. But that is not, it doesn't even come close to how much fun I had when blasting logbooks. If you want to play this game, if you want to play this game long term and you care about making as much currency as possible, definitely look into other things such as crafting and hideout warrior strategies, but in general, stay away from crafting. It's a bait. Now, let's talk about the tips that I would give you if you're trying to get started with crafting. Well, items that you can craft that usually tend to sell good are going to be cluster jewels, are going to be rings such as these ones, with maximum life, some chaos resistance, and maybe another stats such as attributes or damage recouped as life or accuracy. These rings tend to sell quite good and many people need them. You can do boots with spell suppression. Let's see where I have, if I still have one. I think I sold all my boots. The only thing that I'm left is these bad boots here, but you can sell boots with higher resistances and spell suppression. And they tend to sell for about 3 divines, 3 divines, and they cost you about 1 divine to make them, maybe 1.5. And yeah, Stygian Vices in general with armor, resistances, and some maximum life, or attributes, or Stygian Vices with life regeneration, chaos resistance, and increased elemental damage with attacks, or just Stygian Vices with resistances and life. They tend to sell quite a lot. And then it's going to be build specific. I've talked about it in the past, I'm going to show it again. So you go to PoE Ninja, you go to builds, you search by build. So here you look at Righteous Fire, I'm just going to give an example. And you look at the uniques that they're using. If you see that they are using a bunch of uniques for a specific item slot, then you're not going to craft that item slot. You want to craft an item that is usually offering a very important upgrade, a huge upgrade, such as weapons, +2 amulets. And in the case of Righteous Fire, it's going to be the +2, the helmet, the Righteous Fire helmet. Or for Spark, for example, it's going to be the gloves, because Spark is going to be socketed in the gloves, and Righteous Fire is going to be socketed in the helmet. So you look at these builds right here, and you can see that most of them are using Legacy of Fury, Immortal Flesh, Aegis Aurora, Sapphir's Frame, and Rise of the Phoenix. So you cannot craft a shield for this. Some shields, like mine, offer a huge upgrade of huge damage boost, but for Righteous Fire this is not the case, because more than half of them are using unique shields. Also boots, you cannot craft boots, so you're stuck with crafting items that offer a huge upgrade, such as the weapon, maybe the amulet, and because I know this build is going to be the helmet. Or you look at the cluster choose. You can try flasks, but flasks usually tend to sell quite hard. It's quite difficult to sell them. It's going to take quite a long time. But you can try them. You can definitely make profit, because flasks are easy to craft and doesn't require much. So you'd look into how to craft a scepter similar to this one, and maybe +2 amulet, maybe the helmet, because these are the items that offer meaningful upgrade. Yes, the body armor is important, but as you see right here, it's not that great of a body armor. The gloves, they are okay, but they're not something that people are actively seeking. They want this big helmet because it's a huge DPS boost. They want this armor, this weapon, because it's a lot of damage. They want this amulet because, once again, it's a lot of damage. So you'd look into how to craft these 3 items for this build, and then you look at cluster choose. So this is how what I suggest you to do. Obviously, when you're trying a new craft, you're going to make some mistakes, and you're also going to risk it. For example, I don't know if this one is going to sell. I invested 20 divines in it. It's a risk that I took. I hope it will sell. If not, I'm just going to lose 20 divines on this one. Probably I can still get back like 12 to 15 divines just for the base alone, but hopefully it will sell for 20 divines. And lastly, I would say, before you have a craft in mind, double check it in Craft of Exile. Sometimes it happens that you forget that you cannot use add remove from harvest on an influenced item, or maybe you forgot that you cannot use an essence or a fossil on with meta modifiers. So in your head you already planned the crafting method and you apply it in the game, but in the game you realize you just made a mistake and you should have double checked in the emulator here. That's all I have for crafting for profit. As you've seen, these are not great results. It's quite obviously it's not great results because I did not grind as hard as if I were to actually run logbooks. If I actually run logbooks, I would just grind insane amount of hours. But with logbooks, with crafting, I just took it lightly, took many breaks. Simply just because I have 190 divines here, it means that I'm inefficient because I should have been on 0 divines, to be honest. But yeah, this is my experience with crafting at Kickstart.